Hello everyone. A while back I promised that I was going to come back and make another video elaborating on some of the things that I talked about in my free speech, art, and porn video, where I tried to kind of flesh out those different issues and see where they're connected and how we deal with those different topics. So, as a Christian, obviously I'm against uh, things like pornography and things like that. And as an artist, I'm definitely for free speech. And, as a conservative, I'm also for free speech and against, government censorship and things like that. And so there's a lot of lines where all this stuff kind of intersects. And right now, with people being driven off of college campuses for holding views that don't align with some of the students' views, and we got big tech censoring conservative views, where they suppress stories like the Hunter Biden connection with these different foreign regimes. Basically, it looked like he was taking bribes, and all that was suppressed. And now it's all come out that it's actually being investigated, and it's not some kind of crazy conspiracy. You have places like Facebook that are going out and targeting conservative opinions, saying, if anyone says there was a fraud in the election, that their posts are going to be removed. Or you have disputed claims where it says that there was some conservative opinion. They'll say, let's just say back with the election, we'll say, well, the election's disputed as whether there was fraud or not, and they'll point out that was disputed, but they won't point out on any of the left opinions where it says that there was no fraud. So it's okay, that's not disputed. It's only disputed that there was fraud. Well, it takes two to tango. So we know that's absolutely not true, and that they're playing favorites, and that they're censoring us. And in a time like that, where free speech is just under threat, it's hard to stand up against something like pornography. And so we find ourselves, once again in some kind of conundrum here. So last video we touched on some things like how we need to attack porn whenever it does actually break laws. So, it may be protected under freedom of speech, which is, it's questionable, especially if you're an originalist. So, when you're looking at the original intent of the people who wrote the Constitution and were writing down, the freedom of speech, if you look back at their original intent, you can make a really strong case that they didn't mean having sex on camera is free speech. So, I argued that, maybe it is in the last video, but that's neither here nor there. When it breaks laws, then it becomes an issue. So it's no longer your free speech. So, I might be making a statement by maybe giving underage children cigarettes. Okay, well, that's not protected, right? The example I gave last time, it may be my art to kill people and paint with their blood, but that's not protected, right? Because I'm infringing on other people's rights, right? And so, and their other liberties. And I think that's one of the best ways to attack this problem, because it's so accessible, and it's also, there's all these other laws that are being broken at the same time. I think that's our best attack. And there's something going on. I mentioned sex trafficking, a few weeks ago. That was before all this big stink about about sex trafficking being linked to Pornhub, and these rape videos being monetized on Pornhub, and Pornhub's making money off of all of this stuff. Well, that was, I was mentioning that. I mean, I was aware that was already a problem. And it's a problem whenever people like the New York Times are going to comment on it, because, they're also, you find, in that same paper where writers go on and on about how incredible and liberating and beautiful songs like WAP are from Cardi B. So I think, it gets bad. It's bad whenever even the New York Times is going to say something about it. And, we've been hearing a lot in the news about the girl who was adopted, and then somebody's using the institution of adoption and twisting the system so that they could get sex workers for these porn videos. And we heard that Asian girl's very sad story. What a disgusting thing to do, to take a good institution like adoption and twist it like that, and try to make money at the expense of an innocent child. That's what a disgusting world we live in. But that's the world that's described in the Bible, that this is a fallen world, and it is a really, humans are this crazy dichotomy where we can do these absolutely amazing and beautiful things, but we can also do these horrendous and disgusting things. Well, while that momentum's going, I think we should push. If we even have very, very left-leaning rags that are basically like propaganda machines for left politics coming out right now against this, then we need to move and strike while the iron is hot. Okay? Can we make a legal fight against this? Well, the lines are so blurred, and you get bogged down in the mire when you start talking about things like obscenity laws. I think, obviously, it gets really hard to distinguish. Like I said, I think where we draw the line is pornography might be a form of art, but and that might make it protected under free speech, depending on how you look at that. But those lines really do get blurred. But that doesn't make, just because something's art doesn't mean that it's good or that it's right. Just because my speech is protected doesn't mean it can be protected when it goes off and harms other people by breaking laws that are set up to protect us and to preserve our rights and that are constitutional. So, we have a famous statement here from the court case of Jacob Ellis versus Ohio, where Justice Potter Stewart was famously quoted because of this quagmire that he didn't know what he couldn't define obscenity, but he said, I know what it is when I see it. All right, and this is in 1964, and so we've been struggling with this even longer than that. But that's just a famous instance. And, like I said, we don't need to get bogged down in defining what obscenities are. We need to start focusing on places where we have real precedents and start focusing on that. So we have obscenity laws where, it's illegal for someone to come up, an adult to come up and expose themselves to someone who's underage or in public. And that's definitely 100% illegal in almost any place I can think of, and it's because it's infringing on someone else's rights. And no one says, well, that's that pervert's that's their speech, that's performance art, and no one's defending that because it's an assault. It's an actual assault. Okay, and that's kind of what's happening to our children, is the access of the public. When our children can get on the internet, and you could say, well, the parents should be guarding the internet better, and I think that's true. I think that's 100% true, and we do at my house. But even so, you can't control your kid and lock them down all the time. Okay, this stuff needs to be locked away behind a paywall. It needs to be harder to access. You get pornographic imagery with almost any search, depending on your internet settings. But the thing is, even when you have your safe search on your browser, which I try to keep that on, but even when you have that on, you still get these really bizarre results mixed in that are very pornographic. And, it's too accessible. Okay? And that's where we need to attack it. Okay? It's just like indecent exposure. The internet is now the new public sphere. And it needs to be treated as such. It's a very harmful endeavor. And this is one of the reasons I can't get on board when people say, it was real big a couple years ago for famous males to come out and say, like, yes, I'm a feminist. And then everybody would be like, oh, yeah, we applaud you. Oh, it's so brave. Okay. And that was real big. And, it's still very popular. You don't have as many people coming out outing themselves as feminists, but the ideology is still very popular. But one of the reasons I can't get on board when people ask me, like, are you a feminist? I say, well, no. I believe that every single person, regardless of their age, sex, ethnicity, culture, anything, they should all be treated equally. And that I think, of course I want equal rights for all those people. Who doesn't want equal rights for anyone? I mean, there are very few exceptions. Yes, there's some wicked people out there that don't want someone to have equal rights. But I would not consider myself in that category. I would definitely want that. It's a Christian idea, even if I were theocratic, it's a Christian idea that the Bible clearly states that in Christ there are no male, female, Greek, Jew, free, slave. Everyone's equal. We're all created in the image of God. We're all so inexpressibly valuable, immeasurably valuable. But the issue comes in where, I think that feminism actually does females more harm than it does good, especially third and fourth wave feminism. And most of the people that I talk about that try to defend feminism, they don't even know what third and fourth wave feminism is. And so I think that's pretty interesting. But and it could just be the culture here where I'm at. But the deal is that I try to explain to people that, some of the ideas of feminism, third and fourth wave feminism, are very damaging to females. So one of them is that they take a very pro-porn stance. The problem with one of the many problems with porn is that it objectifies women. It turns women into objects that men can use for their pleasure, right? And so they become lowered. Their dignity is lowered. Okay, and just the most basic pornography lowers the dignity of women and uses them as an object. But even the more extreme ends, where they're actually being physically abusive or verbally abusive or any other kinds of things like that, then that's definitely degrading women, hands down. So what you're doing is you're taking something that God intended to be very valuable and lifted up, and you are taking it and basically treating it like trash. And so that in itself is negative to women. But their idea, instead of stopping porn, is to then make feminist porn, where men are objectified. So instead of elevating women up to this height where men are in society, they want to drag both down into the pit. And that's absolutely disgusting. And so we already talked about the trafficking issue in last video, and the New York Times is now talking about it. You could check that out if you want to. And this person from the Times is actually making some very valid points and bringing up some serious issues. So you have this issue of trafficking, and that's fueled and driven by pornography. So porn actually drives this industry. So, and helps it. And so that's an issue. And then they also support abortion. And when you say that this is somebody's reproductive rights to get an abortion, I think that's absurd. You don't have a right to an abortion, in my opinion. What an absurd right. You're going to take the life of somebody else because you need privacy or your body needs autonomy. I don't think we have the right of autonomy. But that's just me. We can argue about that later. But the idea here, stick with me, the idea here is that if I have the right to terminate my pregnancy and extinguish the life of the child that's growing inside me for any reason I wish, just because it's my right, then you can't tell somebody why they can and can't get an abortion. It's their right. So when people overseas want to abort their children because they prefer to have male offsprings rather than female offsprings, you can't say a word about that. You can't say a single word about it. You've made your bed, now you have to lie in it. Okay? And when that happens, what you end up creating is a supply. You have a shortage. You have a dearth of marriable women. Okay? And so that's happening in a lot of these countries, and then that fuels more sex trafficking because they need to supply brides to these people, if you will. Okay? And so that becomes an issue. So you're, number one, hurting women by aborting them. And you're, number two, you're promoting abortion, which then leads to a shortage of females at the age to marry. So then they start kidnapping them and bringing them over. Okay, so that's like a double offense to women. And so I can't get behind any ideology that has ideas like that. That's not equality, and it's not healthy. And a lot of the modern ideas in feminism, it starts taking the male gaze as the correct way to view things and to look at things, and it's saying, well, femininity is wrong, masculinity, if you want to be equal with men, you have to actually become men. You have to do everything that a man wants to do. And I think that's absurd. But if a woman wants to be feminine, then I think that's every bit as valid and valuable. Okay. When I look at a woman who's very feminine, I don't think, well, I'm superior because I'm masculine. If she had the same values and desires as me, then she could play on my level field. That's not what I think. I think we're equal, absolutely 100% equal in value and in every other way. It's just, we're different. So just because something's different doesn't mean it's not equal. And then finally, I just want to touch on the fact that porn is actually really harmful for you. What you're doing is you're taking things out of the context that God, put them in place for. So you're taking sex out of the context of marriage, and you're just, that was given to humanity so that couples who are united by God can bond and grow closer together and share some experience with each other, and give each other something of themselves that no one else can give, which doesn't work that way in society now. It's no longer that way. I wish it were. I wish I would have been that way. But one thing I can say on that vein, I don't want to get too far off the topic of porn here, which I am. I'm like derailing all over the place. But if your partner has been nothing but faithful to you, then to me that's like the highest honor. Like, no, you can't undo the past. Jesus can. But the thing is, who is the person you're married to since they've been with you? If they've been nothing but faithful, then wow, they're faithful and they're preserving themselves for you. Right now I can tell you this: there is no woman on earth um, that I want to be with other than my wife, and there's no other woman that can make me be with them and do that to my wife, because that is something that I reserve for her. That's our special. That's something special between her and me. And when you take sex out of that context, you first of all, you start to get it starts to pervert it in on itself. It starts to get very twisted. So like all these weird fetishes where like I said, they become very abusive or cruel to women, and then you start training your brain to enjoy that. That's very damaging. Also, there have been some studies done that show that porn actually shrinks the size of your brain. So it actually shrinks your brain. So I think the claim is that people who are watching 4 hours of porn or more a week, their brain is considerably smaller in these certain areas, and I think that's a big deal. So your actions, the things you engage in, the sin you engage in, can actually physically change you, and I think that's a really telling thing here, because we think I think one of the big reasons why prostitution is illegal and porn is legal is because it's like, oh, it's not real, it's not really happening, you're just watching it. Well, that what you consume, even what you view, has a physical impact on you. Okay. And so this was done. I think this was done in a study. I'll link some of the studies in the comments below, or in the description, and you guys can check those out for yourself. They're not 100% linked, proven to that one's direct cause. So the caveat is you could be watching porn that much because your brain is smaller. So there's like this correlation. It could be a reverse correlation. So you could either be watching porn and it shrinks your brain, or you could have a really small brain and that's what makes you watch so much porn. I don't know that either of those is optimal. So you can make that case and defend your porn if you want to. You'd be like, no, it don't make my brain small. My brain was already small, and that's why I like porn. Okay? So you can make that defense if you want to. You can make that case. I don't think that's a great case. But anyway, and 4 hours sounds like a lot. I guess it is, but if you talk about there are 7 days in a week and you divide that by 4 hours, well, then it's just a few minutes each day. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. You end up, there's another study that I've gotten a link that I'll link in the description, where it actually has an impact on other areas of your life as well. So you end up getting these developing these habits where you can't delay gratification as well. So you start programming yourself to not delay gratification. And so I think that's a serious issue. Either way, it's having an effect on you. And that's what happens when you take marriage out of context. It's like, when you eat food to gain nourishment and to grow stronger and larger, to fully develop if you're still growing. But, it builds muscles and it fuels you to do these great endeavors to fulfill your purpose. Wow, food is really great, right? Well, I would put this in the same category as like eating food and just to throw it up later because you want to feel full, you want to enjoy the flavor, your body needs to eat, so those urges are so strong, but you don't want to eat, so you throw it up later, and the acid from your vomit begins to eat your teeth and you begin to get really unhealthy and malnourished. That's the same kind of thing. You're taking something that God intended for a certain purpose, for good, as a gift, and you're taking it out of context and it's getting perverted. And then no longer is it this beautiful thing. It becomes something that's very scary. So I thought I would make this second video and make those points. Sex trafficking is no joke. The amount of sex trafficking that goes on is actually terrifying. I found that out whenever I was in one of my teacher trainings. Just the sheer number of girls that go missing in Dallas alone is enough to break your heart. It really is. So talk about damaging to women. And so I think we ought to take this while even the left is on our side, because usually the left defends pornography to an extent. Now, I'm not saying they're all like out there with pitchforks, gouging conservatives and making them watch porn. That's not what I'm saying. But I would say out of the two, now conservatives, they do quite a bit of defending of porn too. I don't want to just let them off the hook because it's free speech, and then you get the other side of the token where the conservatives are like, the government shouldn't tell us what to do, so everybody has to watch porn immediately. I think that's also absurd. You need to find that middle ground where you say that, yes, free speech is important, and the government shouldn't tell me what I can and can't say, just like Facebook shouldn't tell me what I can and can't say. But the thing is, you have to realize that this stuff also breaks other laws. There's a lot of horrendous things that go into this, and it's really damaging to the people on both sides of the camera. So this is my second video on this. I'm not saying I'm not going to make a third video on this, but I don't have any planned. But I did want to make these comments, and I did want to urge everyone, get on this fight. There's a petition going around against Pornhub. People are starting to take action against Pornhub. Pornhub's starting to get nervous, and now's the time when we need to actually make this real. We need people to be able to prove how old they are. I have to prove who I am, who I say I am, and that I've been to a doctor if I want contact lenses. Okay, what happens if I put in the wrong prescription contact lens? Not a flippin' thing. Oh, I can't see as well. Take it out. Okay. But you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove a single thing to get on the internet and watch porn. And I think that's horrendous. Okay? Now's the time we need to stand up. Take a stand. Okay, everyone. Until next time.